And so we continue with Finnegans Wake, Part 1, Chapter 5. In the name of Anna the Almazivel, the ever-living, the bringer of plurabilities, hallowed be her eve, her sing-time sung, her rill be run, unhemmed as it is uneven. Her untitled mamafesta memorializing the mostiest of gone-by many names at disjointed times. Thus we hear of the Augusta Augustissimos for old Sebastius' salvation, Rockabill Booby in the wave trough. Here's to the relics of all decencies, Anastessa's rise to notice, nickel-down duddy gun, and Arish Sir Cannon, my golden one and my silver wedding. Amori tristem in icy sissul, saith the sawyer till a stream. Ik dik top top et tu mihi mihi. By birthplate for a bite, which of your Hester days mean ye tomorrow? Hobby gun the Hebrewer hit waterman the brained. Arcs in his ceiling, flaw chinks on the floor, rebus de Hibernicis. The crazier letters, groans of a Britannis. Peter Peepler picked a plot to pitch his popolin in apology for a big. Some such noun as husband or husband or hosebound is probably understood for all we have. Also, the pluth or plethoric, my Honesbud hands bads, a journey to Porthregill, gone, and he never has the hour. Ought we to visit him? For Arxizu, Cleopatra's needlework fixturing all the bottom on the Sahara, with the combing of the camels and the parlour maids of Egypt, cock in the pot for father, place yat vestre, a new cure for an old clap, where portento stayed grow gander, how I'd wish I was a geese. Ghettonetti, thrust him not. When the myrtles of Venice played to Glaucus's line, to plunge me high he waves chiltern on friends. Ormond's Q visits aim and mart. E'en though I granny a be, he would fain me cuddle. 20 of chambers, weighty 10 beds, and a wan cateroom. I led the life. Through the boxer cocks are rising in the house with the golden stairs. The following fork. He's my old Jerusalem, and I'm his Poe, the best in the West. By the stream of Zemzem under Zigzag Hill, the man that made his mother in the Marlbury train. Try our tal on a tob, the log of Annie to the base hall. Nopple tipped a nappy wank to his naughty little dancy girls. Pers Orel, the king of Ulbrz's intimier minilisp of an exterior monoloth. Drink to him, my jockey, and truth be mine thy winnowing sheep. I ask you to believe I was his mistress. He can explain. From Victrolia Nancy to Albert Nancy, da's a daisy, so give me your Hansel too. What barbarous done to a barrel organ before the rank? Tank in Baumtail, husky ad mortal. What Jumbo made to Jalus, and what Annie said to him. Ophelia's co-prince. Here Hobty Hoblin, my old danch. I am older north rogues among wished I slips, and he calls me his dole of Aisha. Supports a ventriloquist marries a corpse. Laps for Finns this funny coon's week. How the buckling shot the rush in January. Look to the lady, from the rise of the Dodge Public to the fall of the Post still. Of the 2 ways of opening the mouth, I have not stopped water where it should flow, and I know the 29 names of Atraente, the Tortor of Tory Island, traits Galacia like his milk cow. The Abbey Gate of Crowley through a lift in the load, smocks for their graces and meont for them clodhoppers. how to pull a good horoscope, even when old sire is dead to the world. In the gleam of Waterloo, faith is succeeded to my aspirations. These steps forward, 2 stops back. My skin appeals to 3 senses, and my curly lips demand column kisses. Gage Street on a cranny's savings. Them lads made a tryin' of battle watchers, and they thought he's a doit of deers. In my lord's bed, by 1 whore went through it. Mum, it is all over. Cowboy ride by 12-acre terrace in the unique estates of a Mexican. He gave me a thou, so I serve him with thee. Of all the wide torsos and all the wild glen, O Donna, white Donna, he's Hugh to my cry. I am the stitch in his backside, you'd be naught without Mom, to keep the huskies off the hostings, the picture pets from lifting shops. Norsker, Torsker, find the paddle. He pursed me here with an order of an tonberks. A boob was weeping this mower, was reaping, O Lachlan, up from the pit of my stomach, I swish you the white of the morning. Inglo Anlian, Medalois, from Tammany Moor, the great Polynesian entertainer exhibits Ballantine brochures with the link of natures, the mimic of Meg, Neg, and the Mackies, entered as the lastest pictorial in my poor idiocal at Stitchener's Hall, Siegfried Follies, and or a gentle Holmes Fout Pass. See the first book of Jealousy's Pessim. The suspended sentence, a pretty brick story for child-sized heroes. As low our sleep, I knew I'd got it in me, so it settles that. Thunderbolt Captain Smith and La Belle Sauvage Pocahontas. Way for wet week, Wellikin's Douchka Marianne, the last of the Fingalians. It was me egged him on to the Stork Exchange and lent my dutiful face to his customs. Chills on their China mixin. Picked me up, Peters. Lumpty Tumpty at a big fall. Pimp, measly ventures of 2 lice and the fall of fruit. The folks' family interior. If my spread eagles wasn't so tight, I'd loosen my curtsits on that bunch of magi straps. Allaloche, popofits, and how couch me I. Seen apples and then died. I beg you to believes from love and mother, finds fault was no felon. Exat delvin, renter life, the flash that flies from Vaggy's eyes has set me hair on fire. His is the house that Mott made, divine views from back to the front. Abe to Sarah stood ilk neuter till Bram talked him common sex. A nibble at eve will that bowel relieve, all for guineas. Sounds and compliments libidous. 7 wives awake a week, Ariane in Berber blood. Amy licks porter while Huffy chops eads. A brace of umbrellas for a triple of canes. Butter bust from the manor Lord Hove to the Mrs. O'Malley's, and from the dames to their sames, many festoons for the colleagues on the green. An outstanding back and an excellent half-centre, if called on. As tree is quick and stone is white, so is my washing done by night. First and last only true account, all about the honorary Mersu Earwicker, LSD, and the snake Nuggets, by a woman of the world who only can tell naked truths. about a dear man, and all his conspirators, how they all tried to fall him, putting it all around Lucalizad about Private's earwicker and a pair of sloppy slots, plainly showing all the unmentionability falsely accusing about the raincoats. The protiform graph itself is a polyhedron of scripture. There was a time when naive alphabeters would have written it down the tracing of a purely deliquescent recidivist, possibly ambidextrous, snub-nosed probably, and presenting a strangely profound rainbow in his or her occiput. To the heartily curiosing entomophilist, then, it has shown a very sex mosaic of nymphosis in which the eternal chimera hunter Aureolopus, now frond of sugars, then leaf of sots, the century crowd in his belly coupled with an eye for the goods truth, bewilderblissed by their night effluvia, with guns like drums and fondlers like forceps, persequitalites, his Vanessas from floor to floor. Somehow this sounds like the purest Kiduliund wherein our Maternacrucian of Laura lore is rich. Also hero from us him in a kitchernot darkness, the hazard and worn rose arrayed. We must grope on till 0 hour, like poor owls yours, as we are, would we salve aught of our moments for our eyesore today. A mouse, and though not but, closer inspection of the bordereau would reveal a multiplicity of personalities inflicted on the documents or document, and some prevision of virtual crime or crimes might be made by anyone unwary enough before any suitable occasion for it or them had so far managed to happen along. In fact, under the closest eye of the inspectors, the traits featuring the chiaroscuro coelis, their contrarieties eliminated, in one stable somebody similarly as by the providential warring of heartshaker with housebreaker and of dram drinker against free thinker, our social something bows along bumpily, experiencing a jolting series of prearranged disappointments down the long lane of it's as semper as ex-house humper, generations, more generations, and still more generations. Say, Baron Lausador, who in Halhagel wrote the darn thing anyhow? Erect, be-seated, mount-back, against the party wall below, freezigrade by the use of quill or style, with turbid or pellucid mind, accompanied, or the reverse, by mastication, interrupted by visit of seer to scribe, or of scribe to sight, atwixt 2 showers, or a tossed of a trike, rained upon or blown around by a right-down regular racer from the soil, or by a 2-paned whittle-wit laden with the loot of learning? Now, patience, and remember, patience is the great thing, and above all things else, we must avoid anything like being or becoming out of patience. A good plan used by worried business folk who may not have had many momentums to master Kong's doctrine of the meing or the proprietary codistruces of Carprig Mustimus is just to think of all the sinking fund of patience possessed in their conjoint names by both brothers Bruce, and with whom are incorporated their Scotch Spider and Elberfeld's calculating horses. If after years upon years of delving in ditches dark one tub thumper more than others, Kinnihone or Kahanan, Jardarner or meet Meeson Monanger has got up for the darnal same purpose of reassuring us with all the bar of the Karaji house that our great ascendant was, properly speaking, 3 syllables less than his own surname. Yes, less. That the ear of Fionn Earwicker aforetime was a trademark of a broadcaster with wicker local jargot for an ace's patent, here calls everywhere. Then as to this radio-oscillating epipistle, to which cotton, silk, or samite, cohol, gall, or brickdust, we must ceaselessly return. Whereabouts exactly? At present in Siam, Hell, or Tophet, under that glory soul which plays Toraloop with us in this Aludin's cove of our cajacity, is that bright so and such to slip us the dinkum oil? Naysayers, we know, to conclude purely negatively from the positive absence of political odia and monetary requests, that its page cannot ever have been a pen product of a man or woman of that period, or those parts is only one more unlooked-for conclusion leaped at, being tantamount to inferring from the non-presence of inverted commas, sometimes called quotation marks, on any page that its author was always constitutionally incapable of misappropriating the spoken words of others. Luckily, there is another cant to the questy. Has any fellow of the dime a dozen type, it might with some profit some dull evening quietly be hinted, has any usual sort of ornery josser, flat-chested, fortyish, faintly flatulent, and given to ratiocination by syncopation in the elucidation of complications of his greatest feng-yang descendants? Only the son of another, in fact, ever looked sufficiently longly at a quite everyday-looking stamped addressed envelope. Admittedly, it is an outer husk. Its face, in all its featureful perfection and imperfection, is its fortune. It exhibits only the civil or military clothing of whatever passion-pallid nudity or plague-purple nakedness may happen to tuck itself under its flap. Yet to concentrate solely on the literal sense, or even the psychological content of any document to the sore neglect of the enveloping facts themselves, circumstantiating it, is just as hurtful to sound sense, and let it be added to the truest taste, as were some fellow in the act of perhaps getting an intro from another fellow, turning out to be a friend in need of his, say, to a lady of the latter's acquaintance, engaged in performing the elaborative ancestral ceremony of upstairs, straight away, to run off and vision her plump and plain in her natural altogether, preferring to close his blinkard's eyes to the ethiquethical fact that she was, after all, wearing for the space of the time being some definite articles of evolutionary clothing, inharmonious creations. A captious critic might describe them as, or not strictly necessarily, or a trifle irritating here or there, but for all the suddenly full of local color and personal perfume, and suggestive, too, of so very much more, and capable of being stretched, filled out, if need or wish were, of having their surprisingly coincidental parts separated, don't they know, for better survey by the deft hand of an expert, don't you know? Who in his heart doubts either that the facts of feminine clothing are there all the time, or that the feminine fiction, stranger than the facts, is there also at the same time, only a little to the rear, or that one may be separated from the other, or that both may then be contemplated simultaneously, or that each may be taken up and considered in turn, apart from the other. Here let a few artifacts fend in their own favor. The river felt she wanted sought. That was just where Brian came in. The country asked for bear's paw for din-din, and boundin' it got it surly. We who live under heaven, we of the clovery kingdom, we Middlesins people, have often watched the sky overreaching the land. We suddenly have. Our isle is Sange, the plate. The stern chuckler mayhappy, mayhap not, once said to Repetition in that Lotrin conservatory way of his, that Isita Chapel, Asita Lukin, was the one place out nult in this mad val of tears, whose verdures yellowed therever Phaeton parks his car, while its Tamalise tays the dream of Drainophilius, where the possible was the improbable, and the improbable the inevitable. If the proverbial bishop of our holy and undivided, with this me ken or no me ken zot, in the quiz tone havermashed, had his nails on the head, we are in for a sequentiality of improbable possibles, though possibly nobody after having grubbed up a lock of quod corn above his subject, probably in Aristoteles, or the Bible, will go out of his way to applaud him on the unbiased back of his remark, for utterly impossible as are all these events, they are probably as like those which may have taken place as any others which never took person at all, are ever likely to be. Ahan. About that original hen, midwinter, fur occur, was in the offing, and premver a promise of April when, as Keisha Bridges sang life's old sad song, an ice-clad shiverer, merest of bantlings, observed the cold fowl behaviorizing strangely on that fatal midden, or chip factory, or comical-bottomed copstute dump for short, afterwards changed into the orangery, when in the course of deeper demolition unexpectedly one bushman's holiday its lineman threw up a few spontaneous fragments of orange peel, the last remains of an outdoor meal by some unknown sunseeker or place-hider Idaho way back in his mist-ridden past. What child of a strandlooper but keepy little Kevin, in the despondful surrounding of such sneezing cold, could ever have troved up on a strait that was called street a motive for future sanctity by euchering the finding of the Arda chalice by another highly innocent and beach-walker, whilst trying with pious clamour to wheedle tiperaw, raw, re-raw pewterers out of New Zealand in spite of the patch purple of the massacre. Adul to die today. Goddamn and bigod sticks and stanks of most of the Jacobiters. The bird in the case was Belinda of the Dorans, a more than quinquagentarian, Terzi's prize with Sterni medal, cheap Lizzie's hain exposition, and what she was scratching at the hour of clocking 12 looked for all this zogzag world like a goodish-sized sheet of letter paper, originating by transshipped from Boston, Mass, of the last of the first to dear whom it proceeded to mention Maggie well, and Alathome's health well, only the hate turned the mild on the Van Houtens and the general selections, with the lovely face of some born gentleman with a beautiful present of wedding cakes for dear thank you Christy, and with grand fun for all of poor Father Michael don't forget until life's And Muggy, well, how are you, Maggie? And hope soon to hear well, and must now close it with fondest to the twins, and 4 cross kisses for Holy Paul, Holy Corner, Holy Poly, Holy Island. P.S. from Locusts may eat all, but this sign shall they never. Affectionate, large-looking tax of disdain, and that a tea-stain. The overcartlessness of the master bilker here, as usual, signing the page away. Marked it off on the spout of the moment as a genuine relic of ancient Irish pleasant pottery of that Lydia-like languishing class known as the hurry me o'er the hazy. Why then how? Well, almost any photoist worth his chemicots will tip anyone asking him the teaser that if a negative of a horse happens to melting off while drying, well, what you do is, well, a positively grotesquely distorted macromass of all sorts of horse-happy values and masses of melt while horse tip. Well, this freely is what must have occurred to our missive. There's a sort of a turb for you. Please wisp off the grass. Unfilthed from the boucher by the sagacity of a look me little like me long hen, heated residence in the heart of the orange-flavoured mud-mound had partly obliterated the negative to start with, causing some features palpably nearer your pecker to be swollen up most grossly, while the farther back we manage to wiggle, the more we need the loan of a lens to see as much as the hen saw. Tip. You is feeling like you is lost in the bush, boy, you says. It is a puling sample jungle of woods. You most shouts out, Bethicket me for a stump of a beach, if I have the paltriest notions what the fairest he all means. Ye up, girlie. The quad gospelers may own the targum, but any of the zingari schoolerim may pick a peck of kindlings yet from the sack of old Hensign. Lead kindly fowl. They always did. Ask the ages. What bird has done yesterday man may do next year, be it fly, be it molt, be it hatch, be it agreement in the nest. For her socio-scientific sense is sound as a bell, sir. Her volucrine automutativeness right on normalcy. She knows, she just feels she was kind of born to lay and love eggs. Trust her to propagate the species and whoosh her fluffballs safe through din and danger. Lastly, but mostly, in her genesic field it is all game and no gammon. She is ladylike in everything she does, and plays the gentleman's part every time. Let us auspice it. Yes, before all this has time to end, the golden age must return with its vengeance. Man will become dirigible. Ague will be rejuvenated. Woman, with her ridiculous white burden, will reach by one step sublime incubation, while main-wanting human lioness, with her dishorned discipular man-ram, will lie down together publicly flank upon fleece. No, assuredly, they are not justified, those gloom-pourers who grouse that letters have never been quite their old selves again since that weird weekday in bleak Janivere, yet how palmy dated in a waste's oasis, when to the shock of both, Biddy Doran looked at literature. And she may be a mere Marcella, this midget majesty, mistress of arts, but it is not a he or some amorous letter, signed Toga Guerrillas, T.C. dear. We have a cop of her first right against our Nosebos. We note the paper with her jotty young watermark, Notre Dame du Bon Marché. And she has a heart of Aaron. What loamy lilts as she falls with her fallomin ears and her nadia nods, and the straw will shaw when she does the winged blog, recting to show the rodice of a rober curling and shewing the fantasies of a frisette. And how many of her readers realize that she is not out to dizzle-dazzle with a graith of uncouth riment of post-Mantuan glossaries from the Lapins and the Griggs. Nothing's on her wild life. Grab her good and grandy for old aluminium etymologists like Daria Marius and Zovotrimesarovus, and if last raise first swise, a man alone sign anyone's utheras has no rights to done a kick at with any on anakers about tutus milking fours, and the rare airs on the outer end Asican, the tutus to be forerder. Think Ruckliax and every pastor 6 sticks like, since him arounder them maggers by can with down min looking grated, medames, marmoselles, meskerfs, sauvapes, all schwants schweitz, ischt hell the cock's truth about him, kapak, kapuk, no minsies matter. He had to see life foully in the plaque and the smut Schweitz. There was 3 men in him, Schweitz. Dancing's Schweitz was his only 2 feebles. With apple harlots and little mole vogels, specially Schweitz, when they peaches. Honey's wore camellia paints, yours very truthful, I'd dapple in. Yet is it but an old story, the tale of a tree stone within one Isolde, of a mons held by tent pegs, and his pal wat who loosed on the run. What cad man could, but bad man wouldn't. Any Genoa man against any Venice, and why Kate takes charge of the waxworks. Let us now, weather, health, dangers, public orders, and other circumstances permitting, of perfectly convenient if you police, after you police, pardoning me, ik ben so fresh by, drop this jiggery pokery and talk straight turkey meat to mate, for while the ears, be we Micahs or Nicholists, may sometimes be inclined to believe others, the eyes, whether brown or no-lensed, find it devilish hard now and again even to believe itself. Abes ores et no num vidibis, abes aculos ac mana palpabot. Tip. Drawing nearer to take our slant at it, since after all it has met with misfortune while all underground, let us see all there may remain to be seen. I am a worker, a tombstone mason, anxious to please Averyburys and jolly glad when Christmas comes as once a year. You are a poor joist, unctuous to police snobby bobbies and Tony belly solely when 'tis time to our home gin. We cannot say eye to eye. We cannot smile nose from nose. Still, one cannot help noticing that rather more than half of the lines run north-south in the Nemzis and Bucharest directions, while the others go west-east in search of Malazes from Bolgorad, for tiny tot though it looks, when schnup listening along other incunabula, it has its cardinal points for all that. These rude barriers along which the traced words run, march, halt, walk, stumble at doubtful points, stumble up again in comparative safety, seem to have been drawn first of all in a pretty checker with lampblack and blackthorn. Such crossing is anti-Christian, of course, but the use of the home-born shillelagh as an aid to calligraphy shows a distinct advance from savagery to barbarism. It is seriously believed by some that the intention may have been geodetic, or, in the view of the cannier, domestic economical. But by writing thitherways end to end and turning and end to end hitherways writing, and with lines and litters slittering up and louds of latter slittering down, the old seem to my place and juke it back again, from them let them rise till home lit. Sleep. Where in the waste is the wisdom? Another point, in addition to the original sand, pounce powder, drunkard's paper or soft rag used, any vetter inhanger in house south social can see the scene for himself, a weeft off the odd room, the cheery splutter on the one's carrig, a darker the sheen of voos from Dalmania, any grot quantity of raki, a Portugal in some book setting out on the sofer. You remember the sort of softball sucker Matru used to tell us when we were all birbias or nippies in messes. It has acquired accretions of tertious matter whilst loitering in the past. The tea time stained terminal. Not the tag, mummer, for our show's a failure, is a cosy little brown study all to oneself, and, whether it be thumbprint, made mark, or just a portrait of the artless, its importance in establishing the identities in the writer complexus, for if the hand was one, the minds of active and agitated were more than so, will be best appreciated by never forgetting that both before and after the Battle of the Boyne, it was a habit not to sign letters always. Tip. And it is surely a lesser ignorance to write a word with every consonant too few than to add all too many. The end? Say it with missiles, then, and thus arabesque the page. You have your cup of scalding souchong, your taper's waxen drop, your cat's paw, the clove or coffin ale you chewed or champed as you worded it, your lark in clear air. So why, pray, sign anything as long as every word, letter, pen stroke, paper space is a perfect signature of its own? A true friend is known much more easily and better into the bargain by his personal touch, habits of full or undress, movements, response to appeals for charity than by his footwear, say, and speaking anent Tiberius and other incestuous salacities among gerontophiles, a word of warning about the tender-loined passion hinted at. Some soft-nosed peruser may him take it up erogonously as the usual case of spoons, prostituta in herba, plus dinky pinks deliberatively somersaulting off her bicycle at the main entrance of curate's perpetual soutane suit with her one to see and a whoa who picks her up as gingerly as any balm-bearer would, to feel whereupon the Virgin was most hurt, and nicely asking, "Where have you been so grace a mauling, and where were you chased, me child?" Be who, Father Potential? And so wider, but we gristly old psychos who have done our unsmiling bitanalysis, when they were young and easily frightened in the penumbra of the procuring room, and while oracular compression we have and apply to them, did we care to sell our fee-bought silence in camera, tell our very moist-nostrilled one that father in such variegated contexts is not always that undemonstrative relative, often held up to our contumacy, who settles our hash bill for us, and what an innocent all-broads adverb such as Michaely looks like can be suggestive of under the pudendoscope, and, finally, what a neurasthene nympholept, endocrine pineal typus of inverted parentage with a prepossessing drama present in her past and a priapic urge for congress with agnates before cognates fundamentally is feeling for under her lubricitous meiosis when she refers with liking to some feeler she fancies face. And we could. Yes, what need we to say?
'Tis as human a little story as paper could well carry. In effect, a sing-sing to Salaman suing his swit victuals, while as unbluffingly blurred to brosh blunt as an Ezra. The cat's meter, the meter's cat's wife, the meter's cat's wife's better half. The meter cat's wife's half betters meter, and so back to our horses, for we also know what we have perused from the pages of I Was a Gemro, that showing up of Bolscevism from Schottenbaum, that Father Michael about this red time of the White Terror equals the old regime, and Margaret is the social revolution, while cakes mean the party funds, and dear thank you signifies national gratitude. In fine, we have heard, as it happened, of Spartacus Intercellular. We're not cornered yet, dead hand. We can recall with volunteers the froggy Jew. The sweeter far 'twere now, West thinks, in Dombil's fair city, ere one more year is o'er. We turned our coasts to the good gay tunes, when from down towards the sea merged the old oath guns, and Anster made the bold O'Dwyer. But, est modest in verbos, let a prostitute be whoso stands before a door, and winks or parks herself in the fornix near a moccasin wall. Sin. And the curate one who brings strong waters, grin, gin. But also, and dinna forget, that there is many a sleeps between Somathome's first and more in Auslin's last, and that the beautiful presence of waiting Kates will until life's be more than enough to make any milk Mike in the language of sweet tarts punch hell's hate into his twin Nicky and that Maggie's tea. Or, your majesty, if heard as a boost from a born gentleman. For if the lingo gasps between kick sheets, however basically English, we were to be preached from the mouths of wicker churchwardens and metaphysicians in the Rao and Advocatos, Alvoyos, Demivoyels, Languos, Lesbiels, Dentels, Gotterhaus, and Ferts. Where would the practice be, or where the human race itself, were the Pythagorean sesquipedalia of the Panepistemian, however epically Volopoki, grunted and gromwelled, Ichabod, Habakkuk, Openoff, Ogamig, Hapax, Ogomenon, over country stiles, behind slated dwelling houses, down blind lanes, or, when all fruit fails, under some sacking left on a coarse cart. So hath been love, 'tis, and will be, till wares and tears and ages. Thief us the night, steal we the air, shaw thine relief is mine. Hero here insult the fair, traitor, bad hero, brave. The lightning look, the birding cry, all from the grave, ever flowing on the times. Furor gossaria, era water. From now God's sun shine on Mende's daughter. A good clap, a foremarriage, a bad wake, tell hell's well. Such is man o' wife's lot of lose and win again. Like he's grown whiskers on whose chin again. She's plucked them out, but they'll grow in again. So what are you going to do about it? Oh dear. If Jonas she saved, aho, and if Euron he proved, the old storiolum, from Quinet to Michele, and that Jean-Baptiste to a Brulo. It is told in sounds in utter that, in signs so adds to, in universal, in polyglottal, in each auxiliary neutral idiom, sorda mutix flora lingual, scelta focal, flay flutter, a cons cubane, a pros tutut, strasabab, airpers, in any tongue at all. Since Nazi Nanette tripped palmy ways with hi-ho Harry, there's a spurt fire turf a kind of kindling, when oft as the soof blows her peaties up, and the clay pot wet for thee, my cities, and talk a tell Tibbs has Eve, and what though riverless life proving aye the death of Ronald's is, when wind power wine has bucked the kick on poor one man. Biliousness has been biliousness during millions of millenniums, and our mixed racings have been giving 2 hoots or 3 jeers for the grapevine in brew, and Pieters now in New Amsterdam, and Paoli's where the pools go, and rum smelt his end for him, and he dined off South American. It would give one the friar even were one a normal kettle liquor. This old world epistola of their weatherings and their marryings and their buryings and their natural selections has tumbled down to us first and made it all ours like an old cup on tea. And I was hot in me saucer, ha ha, and as you was caught in your Dutchy hovel, ho ho, she told the tale of her tune, hoo hoo. Now capnomancy and infusionium, and both may fit as tight as 2 trivets, but while we in our wee free state, holding to that prestatute in our charter, may have our irremovable doubts as to the whole sense of the lot, the interpretation of any phrase in the whole, the meaning of every word of a phrase, so far deciphered out of it, however unfettered our Irish daily independence, we must vaunt no idle dubiosity as to its genuine authorship and holus bolus authoritativeness. And let us bring thee cease to bickerings on that clink almond butler, on the face of it to volt back to our desultory horses, and for your roughshod mind, baffle lost bull. The affair is a thing once for all done, and there you are somewhere, and finished in a certain time, be it a day or a year, or even supposing it should eventually turn out to be a serial number of goodness gracious alone knows how many days or years. Anyhow, somehow or somewhere, before the book flood or after her ebb, somebody mentioned by name in his telephone directory Coccolaneus or Galataurus, wrote it all down, and there you are, full stop. Oh, undoubtedly, yes, and very potably so, but one who deeper thinks will always bear in the back buckus of his mind that this downright there you are, and there it is only all in his eye. Why? Because sulphur in Babel, if it goes to that, and dormer window gossip will cry it from the housetops no surelier than the writing on the wall will hew it to the maw of men that moult in the main street. Every person, place and thing in the chaosmos of any way connected with the gaubily dumped turkery was moving and changing every part of the time the travelling inkhorn, possibly pot, the hare and turtle pen and paper, the continually more and less intermisunderstanding minds of the anti-collaborators, the as time went on, as it will variously inflected, differently pronounced, otherwise spelled, changeably meaning vocable script signs, no, so help me Petot. It is not a miseffectual hyacinthus riot of blots and blurs and bars and balls and hoops and wriggles and juxtaposed jottings linked by spurts of speed. It only looks as damn it. It only looks as it like damn it. and sure we ought really to rest thankful that at this deleteful hour of dung-flies dawning we have even a written on with dried ink scrap of paper at all to show for ourselves, tear it or leave it, and we are lofted to ourselves as the soul-fisher when he led the cat out of the bout. After all that we lost and plundered of it, even to the hindmost coinings of the earth, and all it has gone through, and by all means, after a good ground kiss to Taracossa, and for war's luck and left-offs flung over our home homoplate, cling to it as with drowning hands, hoping against hope, all the while that, by the light of philosophy, and may she never fall sage us, things will begin to clear up a bit, one way or another, within the next quarrel of an hour, and be hanged to them as 10 to 1 they will too, please the pigs. As they ought to, categorically, as, strictly between ourselves, there is a limit to all things, so this will never do. 4. With that farmfrau's foul flair for that flay-fell fox-fator, the calamites calamitas calling for calamitas calamitans, who that scrutinizing marvels at those indignant whip-blue plashes, those so prudently bolted or blocked rounds, the touching reminiscence of an incompleted trail of dropped final. A round thousand whirligig glorios, prefaced by, alas, now illegible airy plume flights, all tiberiously embellishing the initials of majuscule, the ear-wicker. Embellishing the initials majuscule of earwicker, the meant-to-be baffling Christman Trillathon sign. Finally called after some his hesitancy heck, which, moved contra-watchwise, represents his title sigma as the smaller. Fondly called following a certain change of state of grace and of nature alp or delta, when single, stands for a tautologically, stands beside the course consort. Though for that matter, since we have heard from Cathay circles, how the hen is not merely a tick or two after the first, fifth, fourth of the second, eighth, 12th. Xiang, Chang, Hong Kong, San, Xinyul, but yarely the other and 30th of the 9th from the 20th, our own vogue of 432 and 1132 irrespectively. Why not take the former for a village inn, the latter for an upside-down bridge, a multiplication marking for crossroads ahead, which you like pot-hook for the family gibbet, their old four-wheelers for the bucker's field, a tea anyway for a tryst some day, and his one side missing for an all-blind alley leading to an Irish plot in the Champ de Mort. Not the steady monologue of the interiors, the pardonable confusion for which some blame the cudgel, and more blame the soot, but unthanks to which the peas with their caps awry are quite as often as not taken for cues with their tails in their oar, are quite as often not as taken for pews with their tails in their mouths. Thence your Christopher Columbos, hence our cat Presbyterians, the curt witty-watty dashes never quite just right at the trim trite truth letter, the sudden spluttered petulance of some capitalized middle, a word as cunningly hidden in its maze of confused drapery as a field mouse in a nest of colored ribbons. That absurdly bull's-footed bee declaring with an even plainer domp show than does the mute commoner with us how hard a thing it is for porn a gentleman. And look at this pre-pronominal fun for all, engraved and retouched and edge-wiped and pudding-padded, very like a whale's egg, farced with pemmican as were it sentenced to be nuzzled over a full 1,000,000,000,000 times forever, and a night till his noddle sink or swim by that ideal reader suffering from an ideal insomnia. All those red-rattled Albany cayenne pepper cast over the text, calling unnecessary attention to errors, omissions, repetitions, and misalignments that, probably local or personal, variant maggers for the more generally accepted majesty, which is but a trifle and yet may quietly amuse. Those supercilious-looking criss-crossed Greek E's awkward-like perched there and here out of date like sick owls hawked back to Athens. And these GGs, too, Jesuistically formed at first, but afterwards genuflected agrily towards the Occident. The Ostrogothic cacography affected for certain phrases of Etruscan stable talk, and, in short, the learning betrayed at almost every line's end. The head strength, at least 11 men of 32 palfrey craft, revealed by a constant labour to make a gimel pass through the eye of an iota. This, for instance, utterly unexpected synestogyric return to one peculiar sore point in the past. Those thrown open W's, damn them agglutinatively, lu, tu, blue, face, egg, or il vood or piro, or cans, cords, topofous, seated with such flop right down determination and reminding us ineluctably of nature at her naturalist, while that fretful frigid F, the hornful digamma of your born a barbar, rarely heard now save when falling from the unfashionable ellipsis of some heterosexual, used always in two bold-faced print types, one of them as wrong-headed as his Claudian brother, it is worth while interrupting to say, throughout the papyrus as the revise mark, stalks all over the page, broods, sensation-seeking an idea, amid the verbiage, gaunt, stands dejectedly in the diapered window margin, with its basque of bay leaves all aflutter about its forks frogs, paces with a frown, jerking to and fro, flinging phrases here, there, or returns inhibited with some half-hearted suggestion, dragging its shoestring, the curious warning sign before our proto-parents, epissima verba, a very pure nondescript, by the way, sometimes a palm-tailed otter, more often an arbutus fruit-flower leaf of the cane apple, which paleographers call a leak in the thatch, or the Aranman impervis through which the hole of his hat, indicating that the words which follow may be taken in any order desired. Hole of Aranman the hat through the whispering his hoe, hear keen again, and begin again, and make sound, sense sound kin again. Those haughty-pitched, distorted H's easily of the rarest enestro, as most of the jaywalking eyes we do plough into have, unconnected, principial, medial, or final, always Jims in the jam, sahib, as pipeless as threadworms, the innocent exhibitionism of those frank yet capricious underlinings, that strange exotic serpentine, since so properly banished from our scripture, about as frequent as Wetterhand, now as to see a right-hated lady white don a cork horse, which, in its invincible insolence, ever longer more and of more morosity, seems to uncoil spirally and swell lacertine lazily before our eyes under pressure of the writer's hand. The ungainly musicianlessness, so painted in sculpting self-sounder, ah-ha, as black artful as a poetess, and dumbfounder, oh-ho, uproarious as 10 cannons in skelterfuge, the studious omission of year, number, and era name from the date, the one and only time when our copyist seems at least to have grasped the beauty of restraint, the lubricitous conjugation of the last with the first, the gypsy matting of a grand stylish grave digging with second best buns and interpolation. These munchables occur only in Bothersbrouth family of Cod the fourth, Pap the second, Breck the 11th, Lon the third, Din the 17th, Sop the 30th, Fulham, MDCXC 1690 or thereabouts. The scholiast has hungrily misheard a deadman's toller as a muffin bell, the four shortened ampersands under which we can glimpse at and feel for ourselves across all Rochiers the warm, soft, short pants of the quick scribbler, the vocative lapse from which it begins and the accusative hole in which it ends itself, the aphasia of that heroic agony of recalling a once-loved number, leading slip by slipper to a general amnesia of misnombering one's own. Next, those R's, those R's all bellical, the high priest's hieroglyph of Kettle Tom and Odds Bones, rasted red-handedly from our hallowed rubric prayer for truce with booty, O Remus pro Romulo, and rudely from the fane's pinnacle, tossed down by porters to within an aim's ace of their quatrain of ruby jets, those among those who arse without the temple, or since Rose distillery burned, have quaffed night's fire-filled cup, but jig jog jug, as they the dice box throws. Wang, loyal six I lead, out with your heart's fluid, blast ye, and there she's for you, sir. Wang her, oh, the fine omen, rouge her to lobster locks, the Rossi. Wang, got him Mara, has it with his ruddy old villain Rufus. Wait, Wang, got him near another. He hasn't, for there's my spoil 5 of Spud's trumps. Wang, whack on. His ping's king's kisser for him. K.M. O'Mara, where are you? Then, coming over to the left aisle corner down, the cruciform postscript from which the 3 basia, or shorter and smaller oscula, have been over carefully scraped away, plainly inspiring the tenebrous tonk page of the Book of Kells. And then it need not be lost sight of that there are exactly 3 squads of candidates for the Crucian Cross awaiting their turn in the marginal panels of Column Killer, chugged in their 3 ballot boxes, then set apart for such hanging committees, where 2 was enough for anyone, starting with old Matthew himself. As he with great distinction said just then, just as since, then people, speaking, have fallen into the custom, when speaking to a person, of saying 2 is company, when the 3rd person is the person darkly spoken of. And then that last labiolingual bastion might be read as a suavium, if whoever the embracer then was wrote with a tongue in his, or perhaps her, cheek, as the case may have been then. And the fatal droop and dwindle slope of the blamed scrawl, a sure sign of imperfectible moral blindness, the too muchness, the far too manyness of all those 4-legged M's. And why spell, dear God, with a big thick D? Why, oh why, oh why? The cut and dry asks and wise form of the semi-final, and 18thly and 24thly, but at least, thank Maurice, lastly, when all is zed and done, the Penelopian patience of its last paraph, a colophon of no fewer than 732 strokes, tailed by a leaping lasso, who thus at all this marvelling, but will press on hotly to see the vaulting feminine libido of those interbranching orgum, sex up and sweeps, sternly controlled and easily repersuaded by the uniform matter-of-factness of a meandering mal fist. Duff Mowgli, who now may be quoted by very arrangement. his dectoscophonious photosensation under suprasonic light control, may be logged for by our none-too-distant futures as soon as stone values can be turned out from chromophilomonos limited, at the millicentime, the microamp. First called this kind of paddy-go-easy partnership the Eulichian or tetracheric or quadramane or duck and drakes or debts and dishes perplex. Some forestallings over that studium of sexophonologistic schizophrenesis, volume 24, pages 2 to 555. After the well-informed observation made miles apart by the master by tongue-toed, see reference later, frustrations amongst the neo-Muglian teachings abaft the semi-unconscious passum, that in the case of the little-known periplic bestseller popularly associated with the names of the wretched mariner, trained for in deaf we doff, our plume-sucked pattern-shaped keeper, a Punic Admiralty report from Macpherson's ocean round by the tides of Jason's cruise, had been cleverly capsized and saucily republished as a Canadian Baedeker of the every tale a treat in itself variety, which could hope satisfactorily to tickle me gander as game as your goose. The unmistaken identity of the persons in the Tiberius duplex came to light in the most devious of ways. The original document was in what is known as Hanno o non-Hanno's unbrookable script. That is to say, it showed no signs of punctuation of any sort. Yet on holding the verso against a lit rush, this new book of Morses responded most remarkably to the silent query of our world's oldest light, and its recto let out the piquant fact that it was but pierced but not punctured, in the university sense of the term, by numerous stabs and foliated gashes made by a pronged instrument. These paper wounds, 4 in type, were gradually and correctly understood to mean stop, please stop, do please stop, and oh do please stop, respectively. And following up their one true clue, the circumflexuous wall of a single-minded men's asylum, accentuated by beasts so broke China, broken English, split China. Yard inquiries pointed out that they had been provoked by fork of a grave professor at his breakfast table, acutely professionally piqued to introduce a notion of time upon a plane so fast by puncts singles in space, deeply religious by nature and position, and warmly attached to thee, a smear bread and butter, and him, and new ladles. It was rightly suspected that such ire could not have been visited by him, Brotsfesser Prendergast, even underwittingly, upon the ancestral pneuma of one whom, with rheuma, he venerated shamelessly at least once a week at Cockspur Common as his apple in his eye, and her first boy's best friend, and, though plain English for married lady misled heaps, by the way, yet, when some peerer or peeress detected that the 4-leaved shamrock or quadrifoil jab was more recurrent wherever the script was clear, and the term terse, and that these two were self-same spots naturally selected for her perforations by Dame Partlet on her dung heap, thinkers all put groan in waterung spillful pretty land only, and the playful foul, and musical me, and not you in any case, 2 and 2 together, and, with a swarm of bisses honey hunting after, a sigh for shame, oh, the petty bonny rogue, separated, modest mouse.
So be it. And it was. The letter-making of the exploits of Bjorn Camhorsten, when he was in the Kaveen's country with Saldru's men. With acknowledgement of our fervour of the first instant, he remains years most fainfully. For postscript sea spoils, though not yet had the sailor sipped that sup, nor the humpher foam to the fill, and fox and geese still kept the peace around l'auberge du Père Adam. Small need for that, old Jerusalem, old Hofsnoff, old Andy Cox, the old Cassandrum, for quizzing your weekenders come to the RQ with, shoots off in a hiss, muddles up in a mass, and his holes a dismantled noon drunkard's son. Howbeit we heard not the son of sons to leave by him the oceanic society, in his old man without a thing in his ignorance, Tolko McHooley. And it was thus he was at every time that son, and the other time the day was it in it, and after the morrow dire mood, is the name is on the writing chap of the Psalter, the juxtajunctor of a dear mate, and he passing out of one desire into its fellow. The daughters are after going and lodging for him, Torba's nice lookers of the fair neck, wanted for millinery servants to orderly's person by the Totty Askinses, formally confounded with the mother. Maybe growing a moustache, did you say, with an adorable look of amusement, and uses no-class billiard halls with an up-and-down ladder. Not Hans the Courier. No, he have only had some little laughings, and some less of cheeks, and were he not so worried by his bulb of persecution, he could have, aye, and would have, as true as Essex Bridge. And not go gossip, I declare to man. No, to all's much relief one's half-hypothesis of that jabberjaw ape amok the showering chestnuts of Brusenos was hotly dropped, and his room taken up by that odious, and still today insufficiently mal-estimated note-snatcher. Cock, foo, bosh, and fety. Much erny gospochin, says you. Shem the penman.